This is DC, powered by people and ideas, where the community comes together, voices are heard, and decisions are shaped.
So I want to start by saying, welcome home.
Connecting you to what matters and to each other.
How you doing? You know, what's the tea?
I'm Lorenzo Hall, and this is the DC Beat.
And it's good to see you again. Welcome to the DC Beat. I'm Lorenzo Hall. So we know there is a lot happening in our city this week, so make sure you are ready. We have 4th of July parades, the Nats are playing Saturday, World Cup watch parties, the Great American State Fair on the Mall, and the Salute to America 250 celebration and fireworks. There are military flyovers planned as well. Because of the fireworks and flyovers, some flights out of National have been suspended. Parts of the Anacostia and Potomac Rivers are going to be closed off too, along with plenty of roads throughout the city. Crews are putting all the pieces in place, not just downtown on the mall you see right there, but also right here, Anacostia Park. For the first time, parts of Anacostia will be closed off for fireworks. So I know top of mind for a lot of you at home, safety and security. So let's do a beat check, shall we? DC and federal officials gave us an update earlier this week. Deputy Mayor for Public Safety and Justice, Lindsey Appiah, she was in the room and is at the table to update us tonight. I want to have this chat because we know this isn't just about what's happening downtown, but our neighborhoods significantly impacting those of us who live here. Deputy Mayor, it's good to have you at the table.
It's good to be here.
Oh man, where do we even start? This is quite the week, and it's going to be quite the weekend.
Yes, that's exactly right.
So we have what we know now, with the fireworks show is going to start at around 11 p.m. Saturday.
So it's actually, they've moved it back a bit one of our requests and what we've been working on is to try to have it as early as possible. It's going to be very hot. And a long day for people. So Freedom 250 put up the run of show today, and so it's scheduled for 10:30.
Okay, so we're moving.
Every little bit helps.
But that depends on the president's speech, right? He's supposed to give that speech,
correct.
So we know that he sometimes gets a bit long.
It's scheduled for 10:30.
So how does that work for you all? I mean, obviously there are a lot of moving pieces here. A lot of people in the city are wondering, okay, where do I go? What can I do? So much is closed off. What's happening? This is different.
It is different. One of the first things that I've said to people is this is a national special security event, which is not usual for 4th of July. So there is a lot more fencing. People from DC recognize that, right? Because we have inauguration and we have had a number of events like this. For those who are coming, you know, it will be an experience of a lot of fencing and checkpoints and things they're not used to. So what we've been telling people is pack your patience. That's the first thing, right? Like exercise patience. But there's a lot of places you can get information. We've put maps and transit information and everything at 250.dc.gov, trying to make it as easy as possible for people to find information. Things like what can you bring in, where are checkpoints, how do you move about the space? And for people in other parts of the city, there's a lot going on, right? We have all of our local events still. We have our Barracks Row Parade. We have our Palisades Parade. And you know, we know a lot of people might go to the mall to watch the fireworks, but we've also put maps out of other locations where people could still have a great vantage point of the fireworks if they don't want to kind of maybe brave some of the security apparatus that's on the mall.
So because of that, we know that another change this year too, Anacostia Park. We know a lot of people typically celebrate the 4th there. A lot of our neighbors in that area near Anacostia Park typically celebrate. What kind of changes should they expect this time around?
Sure. So there's going to be 2 fireworks shows. So that's different. One in Anacostia Park, and then of course the one that's on the National Mall. So there are some closures for that because obviously, you know, we want people to be safe. But there are parts of the park that are open. So again, we've put up maps at 250.dc.gov because we want people to still be able to enjoy the park if they want to, but to know where they can go for viewing areas and to enjoy the park safely.
Yeah. So what kind of planning goes into this? I mean, obviously we have these moving targets. We just mentioned minutes ago that the fireworks are going to now start at 10:30. Yeah. This is a lot of work.
It is a lot of work. You know, no place puts on more large-scale events like this than Washington, D.C. We do, I think this is our 8th national special security event in 2 years, and there's only been something like 80 or 80, just over 80 in the history of national special security events. So we're very used to working together with federal, state, local partners to pull off large-scale events. This year is different. There's no question that what people are seeing is a lot more activities kind of back to back to back to back.
Yeah.
And so what goes into it is months and months of planning with a lot of partners, federal partners, district partners, regional partners, transit partners, and event organizers, event by event. And it really is a daily, it's kind of a daily effort to make sure that we're doing everything possible. First, our biggest issue is always safety. We want people to be safe, and safe, not just physically safe, but we know things like heat. Well, are there going to be enough water stations?
Yeah,
Are there enough medical tents? Is there places, weather is always a factor, where people can get in from shelter? So we really work hard with everybody to make sure all of those bases are covered and that we're adjusting as things change, especially when you're planning for months.
Yeah.
Security issues arise, weather issues arise, and so we're constantly working to adjust to make sure that people are able to safely and hopefully have fun and enjoy these events.
As we head into the weekend, what's your biggest concern right now? Is there anything that you are watching closely?
The weather. The weather, it's always hot in DC in the summer, but we know that these temperatures over 100, that's extreme weather.
Yeah.
So we have an extreme heat advisory, and we want people to stay hydrated, to take breaks, and again, it's a long day. One of the things about the fireworks being a bit later is that creates some longer time for people to be out, and so it's been very important to us to keep on reminding people to drink more water than they think they need. We understand that there's security restrictions that are put in place in terms of what people can bring onto the mall. So we're really emphasizing that there are misting stations, there are places for people to refill water bottles, all of those things to make sure that they're really staying hydrated. And that's true also staying hydrated across the city, because that's the biggest concern. 4th of July is our largest call volume day in 911 and for our fire and EMS partners, and of course for MPD as well. So, the more you can help us help you by, kind of minding yourself and your neighbors and your pets, that helps a lot.
With that said, we know that with everything happening on the mall, is that pulling away from some of our other resources?
So what I would say is our first priority is our entire city. And so we're proud and to be able to be the federal city and to host large-scale events. And, last year we had 27.2 million visitors to the district, and that's great. We like that. But we also recognize that we don't want our neighborhoods to suffer at all. So part of the planning is to make sure that we have enough resources to that our neighborhoods aren't suffering. So we have a full activation for MPD, a full activation for DC Fire, lots of extra 911 call takers. We have Safety Go teams, which we've done several years, which are our credible messengers, violence interrupters, our safe passage workers across the city, making sure that we have enough resources to make sure that neighborhoods are safe as well.
So we know typically in DC, 4th of July extends to July 10th, 15th. Fireworks going off, the month of July. Like, people are lighting off fireworks at all hours. Is there anything in place this time around? I know that in years past there had been, I guess the Go team, were they responding to that as well?
So Go teams help us to identify fireworks because Chief Donnelly will say, like, none of the fun fireworks are technically legal in DC. You're not supposed to have anything that's projectile or it feels like military grades sometimes in our neighborhoods. Right. Those are likely not legal. So we have set up, just like we have in years past, where there'll be a special fireworks tab on 311.
Okay.
So if there's a real issue, you can call 911 too, right? Like if there's a safety concern that you're seeing a fire, things like that. But there'll also be a code in 311 for fireworks. And across the city, like I said, there's a full activation of fire EMS, our fire marshals, and then also each district at MPD will have a fireworks car that's going around collecting fireworks and responding to those calls that come in. Okay.
And finally, for you, as we head into the weekend, yet another busy period, how do you keep your calm? Here's that.
I say a lot of things. Like I tend to be sort of a even keel person. Pray. But it's. I think this is true of everybody. You have to like center yourself, go into the day with like some prayer, meditation, music, things to remain calm, and then. I trust the people. We have really, really good professionals in DC, and I'm really fortunate to lead a cluster of public safety professionals that are best in the country. And I don't just say that because they're the team that I work with, but it really is true. And so I don't worry as much. I mean, I make sure that I'm in there. Like they'll tell you, I'm very involved, but I trust them, and that my trust in them has been proven to be correct. So I think that really helps me too. If I was like, oh,
yeah,
you know,
like
like
micromanage it. Yeah,
but I don't have to do that because the public safety professionals and our partners across DC government, like I really, they are the best of the best. And so even when there's things there's always unexpecteds in DC. They have proven themselves time and time again to be professionals, to really care deeply about the city and to do what's necessary to make sure people are safe. So I think that helps a lot because I don't have to be like, okay, this might go, what happens if this? And so the other thing too is we're a team and that helps so I don't feel like, oh. Yeah. But I also don't shun that I am the deputy mayor and it's my responsibility to lead well.
Yeah, set the tone.
To set the tone. And so I just say it helps, my faith helps me a lot to be positive and joyful. And I think that helps everybody else too. Yeah. We deal with a lot of heavy things in public safety, oftentimes life and death things. Right. DC is a complicated city. We're a complicated city in a complicated time. Yeah. And so it really requires kind of setting your mind and your intentions that you're going to focus more on positive and hopeful things and joyful things than the alternative. And that is a choice. So I make that choice.
It's a choice. That's true. Maybe you should lead a citywide workshop or something.
Yeah, sure.
Deputy Mayor Lindsey Appiah,
thank you so much for having me.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
All right, so a lot of our neighbors are sounding off about the new RFK Stadium master plan. The plan divides the 180-acre campus into 6 districts. Organizers say that makes room for 6,500 housing units, shops, restaurants, a grocery store, 1,200 hotel rooms, and 60 acres of parks and open space. The plan also calls for parking garages to support the new stadium and widening Oklahoma Avenue. Our Alexis Wainwright spoke with some of our neighbors about the plans.
Asking for our input and then you're really disregarding it by the time we actually see it drafted.
The neighborhood chats are lighting up. Everyone is sad. Everyone is distraught. I feel pretty ignored. My neighbors feel pretty ignored. If our screams for changes have not been heard at this point, I don't know what they want to hear from us.
Right, Rafa, you were at the Wilson building as well, talking to city leaders about the plan, about transportation. So where does this stand? It seems like a lot of the people who live in Kingman Park, the area around the stadium, just aren't happy about what they see.
Look, DC officials are insisting there's still time to make changes, Lorenzo, but we're hearing a lot of the same things. People saying, is there? We've been at these meetings, we've contributed some of our feedback. We gave the feedback, but how does this master plan reflect those suggestions? They're insisting again that there's still some wiggle room, but those parking structures, a big issue that was brought up. And I asked the DC director for the Office of Planning and asked her, look, when you heard those complaints about the parking structures, what did you change? She said the aesthetics of the building. So not having these big concrete, massive parking structures to fit around 6,000 cars.
So they're gonna have greenery or something like that around it?
Greenery, yeah, greenery, also some artwork on there, I guess just to not make them so daunting and ugly. But look, it was a huge issue and people really want to see that. The other big topic and feedback that they keep getting back is they want multiple ways to get to the stadium, whether it's bus, metro, walking, bike. And they're saying that this plan actually delivers on that promise and those suggestions that our DC residents in Ward 7 made.
So do we know in terms of transportation what they're leaning toward? We mentioned widening Oklahoma Avenue. That's right in front of people's homes.
Yeah.
Which way?
Look, I just came back from the Wilson building. They're sticking to their plan that Metro rolled out in May. Essentially, they're going to do a lot of investment to make Stadium Armory twice as big, but they're also going to really rely on the Gold Line, which is that rapid bus system that connects Union Station to the stadium. It's going to have multiple stops along H Street and along Benning. I also learned today that the actual stops, the platforms, will be in the middle of the roadways.
So that's still a go. I thought when it was presented that there's no way we're going to go through with this. The streetcars, we just got rid of those.
I know, but essentially the same platforms we see on Benning, they want those on H Street, and the reason why is they don't want to get rid of the parking on H Street, specifically for those businesses, and that's the way they can have parking and this rapid bus route.
So we may be seeing the gold line. So finally, 30 seconds left, Rafa. They still want input, like you said. This looks like it's done.
Yeah, unfortunately, and that's how a lot of the residents are feeling. They're saying that when it comes to the council really approving this master plan, that's where some of the changes could come. I also heard from the commanders today that said there's still the possibility of them making some changes. So, when pressure is put on DC officials, maybe some changes will come up. But, that frustration that people hear, I've heard it multiple times of them saying, we gave our opinion, but why did it matter?
They attended dozens and dozens of meetings.
33.
33. Yeah, and here we are.
Here we are.
Okay, have until August 14th. Rafa, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so some of our neighbors are also sounding off about the number of DC agency leaders who are serving but have not been confirmed by the DC Council. MPD Interim Chief Jeffrey Carroll is just one example. DC law limits interim and acting appointments, and that increased pay rate to 180 days. Carroll, we know, has been leading MPD for more than 6 months. A reporter for Notice, Martin Ostermuhle, pressed Council Chair Phil Mendelson on this issue, and Mayor Bowser was also asked about it.
So MPD Chief Jeffrey Carroll it's been beyond the 6 months. He's been serving in an interim capacity. I asked the mayor 2 weeks ago if she was going to nominate him for a permanent post, and she didn't much answer the question. My assumption is she just won't. Where does that put you guys? Because again, you're in this awkward situation where there is a mayor-elect coming in who could potentially want to go in a different direction. But you also have an an interim police chief who is still being paid as the police chief, even though the law says he can't be paid as a police chief after those 6 months. And this is not the only, there's the director of DPW has been at this for 2 years. The director of the, Office of Chief Medical Examiner has been in an interim capacity for like 4 years. And the council hasn't done anything about it, even though it's the law that something has to be done.
I do not have a good answer for you.
That's it? You just don't have a good answer?
Correct.
Have you expressed displeasure with the mayor over this? This is the council's one power is that you guys.
Not recently.
Okay.
If these were agencies that were directly under my oversight, I would be definitely agitating on this.
You're blaming the council members who have oversight of these agencies?
I'm not going to talk about very specific personnel matters. I think I've made it very clear that we want to have the best of the best leading the Metropolitan Police Department. There will be a new mayor. New mayors make very critical, prefer to make very critical appointments. There may be some appointments where we have gaps that we will advance in the next 6 months.
All right, so another big talker is still the D.C. primary elections. The counting is officially complete. Nearly 155,000 D.C. residents voted by mail, drop box, or in person. This was D.C.'s first time using ranked choice voting, and we really saw how that plays out in the Ward 1 council race, where after 4 rounds and nearly 20,000 votes, Appiah Raj was declared the winner of the Democratic primary. She is a communications manager for a progressive policy advocacy group and a Democratic socialist. Raj is at the table with me tonight. Appiah, good to have you at the table. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
All right, so you had to go through 4 rounds of this, ranked choice voting, obviously used this time around. So you get the results on election night. What are you thinking in that moment? Do you think it's going to happen? Are you a little worried?
Yeah, I think election night felt very good, but I just, we didn't know for sure. There was still first round votes being tabulated, but I came out of election night feeling very, very excited about where we were. We had a sense that if we were somewhere above 40% in the first round, that we would probably win the whole thing. But it was a weird liminal space for a week where we were like, we think we're going to win, but not 100% sure yet. So, I think we were really excited. And we were definitely really excited about Janice Lewis-George winning the mayor's seat and having that look more definitive. But this most recent Sunday, when they officially called it, was a really, really exciting night.
What do you think your victory says?
Yeah, I think not just my victory, but I think across DC, it was a pretty resounding vote from DC residents of being tired of the status quo that we've been seeing. A lot of people have been ground down by the cost of living, especially in Ward 1. We've seen so much displacement, particularly among Black and brown families. And then Ward 1 has also been the site of so much of the Trump administration's attacks on our communities. We have a lot of immigrants who have been under threat. And, you know, we had kind of these two different crises, the cost of living crisis, the Trump administration, just really coming together over the past year. And people have been looking for elected officials who will fight for them, whether it is helping keep rent down, pushing back against monopoly utility companies, or pushing back against the Trump administration and making sure everyone in DC can live freely here.
Yeah. Now, what does that fight look like as a council member? Obviously, you're just one in this group here.
Yeah.
So how do you implement your strategies and some of these promises that you made to the people in Ward 1?
Absolutely. So my perspective is from that of an organizer, and organizing, I think a lot of people think of people out at rallies and out at protests, but the majority of it is really relationship building, talking to people one-on-one, getting to know what moves them, what they really care about. And that's how I'm going to approach being on the council, and also working with our new mayor as well, is doing a lot of that deep relationship building, figuring out what council members really care about, you know, who will be allies on childcare, who will be allies on protecting tenant protections and things like that. And also trying to open up the political process to people who have felt left behind or locked out for a long time.
What does that mean? What do you mean open up the political process?
Yeah, I think right now, you know, for so many reasons, local government can be really opaque, and it's hard to find out what's happening if you don't already have, you know, an organization that you're a part of, or if you're not already paying attention to it. And if people are focused on their day-to-day lives, if they're focused on trying to pay their bills, if they're focused on making sure their kids are picked up from school and things like that, they may not necessarily be following the minutia of the Wilson building. So, you know, one thing we tried to do throughout the campaign was really activate a lot of people who hadn't been involved in politics and try to use our communications channels as a way to provide some of that public education for folks. And that's how I want to approach the governing side too, is making sure people know, you know, what I'm planning to introduce, policy I'm introducing, you know, what oversight hearings are happening, the questions that I'm going to try to ask and the answers that I'm looking for, and trying to make things that can be really, really wonky a little more accessible for people.
What do you would be the youngest council member.
Yeah.
What do you think that brings to this body?
Yeah,
your experience?
You know, I think I was the youngest person in the Ward 1 race, and I kept thinking to myself, like, it's wild that at 32, I was the youngest person in a council race. You know, and I think people are really hungry for a lot of energy. They're hungry for people, elected officials who, like I said, have that fight and are willing to really to go to bat for people. So I think it's, you know, especially in this moment where Ward 1 and DC are kind of in an emergency, thinking creatively about the council member's office and thinking creatively about what governing looks like. You know, I think constituent services can be more than just responding to requests that come in. It is the council member being out on the streets with people, keeping an eye out for ICE, trying to, you know, film ICE when we see them, trying to make sure that people have groceries if they're too scared to leave their home, trying to check up on people more proactively. And I think we see, you know, that I think more than the age piece of it, I think a lot of it comes from, you know, being a democratic socialist and being an organizer myself, and trying to do whatever it is that we can in the different tools and avenues that we have to improve people's lives.
What about people who will listen to this and they go, oh man, democratic socialists on the council, what's happening in DC? How would you explain that? I had Metro DC Democratic Socialists of America on our last show, so we talked about that. What is, you know, a democratic socialist? In your view, what does that mean? What would you tell people?
Yeah, I think at the core of it is, if you believe that every single person who lives in DC or who lives in the US in general deserves a dignified home, deserves a good union job, is able to pay all their bills with just having one job, deserves health care and not having to go bankrupt with a medical emergency, then I think you're in line with a lot of democratic socialist values. And I think the difference that sets democratic socialism apart specifically is this recognition that over the years, a lot of these things that we see as basic needs, like housing and energy and healthcare, have been really pushed to provide profit for corporations, for insurance companies, for pharmaceutical companies, for developers, to the point where that profit is put over the people whose lives are at stake for those needs. So I think, democratic socialism is about giving working people more power in our government and in our economy, and to make sure that a lot of these basic needs are primarily about making sure people have what they need to survive, and not for someone else to make a profit off of it.
Okay, so we know that we were talking before we started the show here, and talking about how you're going to get ready for this role. So you went back to work.
Yeah.
After the race was declared, you had been off for a bit.
Yeah.
So what are the next few months? Obviously, you have a general election in November, but what happens between now and then?
Yeah, and I think taking a step back too, I think that was something that was really interesting on the campaign trail. Is I think I was maybe the only one in the Ward 1 race who was employed by sort of an external employer and who was working full time for most of the campaign. And I think that was also just a really interesting thing to see too, is you don't know until you experience it that it would be really difficult for someone who needs to work full time to be able to run for office. But I think we need more of that representation of people who, are workers, are union members, understand what it means to have to also figure out how to pay your bills while also pursuing political office. And so I am back at work. And yeah, I was extremely lucky that my job was really supportive and let me take time to be able to take vacation to run for office and everything as well. And my plan is to continue working. I do eventually also want to go to a Spanish immersion school, most likely in Guatemala, to really improve my Spanish. I think, our campaign had most everything that we put out translated into Spanish. And that was really important to me to, again, make sure that things could be accessible to most people who live in Ward 1. And it's really important to me also that, I felt like I had some challenges being able to communicate directly with a lot of Spanish-speaking Ward 1 residents. I had a lot of great volunteers and staff who were able to support those conversations, but I want to really improve my Spanish so that I can myself talk directly with a lot of the constituents in Ward 1 and make sure that I'm representing them to the best extent possible.
Yeah. And so what's your priority? If you're elected, if history is any indication, you will be the next council member for Ward 1. So you get into office, what is your priority within the first 90 days? Yeah,
there are quite a few priorities. I think I am definitely thinking of a lot of the longer term, things that I talked about on the campaign trail, like free childcare, like rent stabilization. And I think within the first 30, 60, 90 days, I'm really going to be focused on what are the things that people most immediately need to be able to stay in DC. As we see ICE bearing down on our streets, making sure that we strengthen our Sanctuary Values Act and expand protections for immigrants is going to be a big priority for me. As we are in an economic crisis that has been really bearing down on also a lot of small businesses, making sure that we can make it easier and more affordable to operate streeteries for small businesses in Ward 1 is going to be another priority. And then also exploring different legislation to expand worker protections, so people have sort of a safety net and they have more power on the job. And then finally, I also want to bring, I know that we're potentially going to have a lot of turnover in the executive, or we're going to have new agency appointments. And I think having a really strong oversight lens to begin with, to make sure that we're appointing people who are qualified, who don't have conflicts of interest within their agencies, is going to be really important to make sure that government works for everyday people, and to make oversight hearings hopefully a little easier down the line.
Well, hopefully you can get a vacation of some sort in there, because clearly you are going to be busy.
Yeah, definitely. We'll see. I think right now I've just been enjoying the downtime of being able to go to restaurants and spend more time with my husband and my dog a little bit more. So that's been nice. I went to EB's for the first time.
Oh,
which
nice.
Was
I haven't been yet. Clearly I need to check it out.
Yeah, the dirty martinis and the burgers are both great.
Okay. I have to put that on the list for this weekend. Democratic nominee for Ward 1 Council Member Appiah, thank you for being at the table. Appreciate it. Good to see you.
Yeah, thank you. Good to see you too.
Okay, let's end this on a high note. Workers in D.C. are getting a raise. Starting today, July 1st, the district's minimum wage is increasing from $17.95 an hour to $18.40 for all employees. The base wage for tipped workers is also going up from $10 to $10.30 an hour. All right, and on that note, that does it for the DC Beat this week. Thank you for giving me some of your time. Truly the greatest gift. I'll see you back here next Wednesday.